Hello world, it's John Pinto, your roving realtor, bon vivant, video blogger, podcaster, here with Matt Tryon, nutritionist, and all things microbiome. Easier for me to say. And today we're going to go down the microbiome testing rabbit hole, a rabbit hole that I am less than enthusiastic to dive down because my only previous experience with this was being a baby boomer male. I have obviously had my doctors literally and figuratively up my butt, checking for colon cancer. And of course, you have options. You can do the Cologuard, which is a whole thing of stool collection, or you can get a colonoscopy. And you know what, Matt? In my world, getting a colonoscopy is easier than doing the Cologuard thing.
In what way? I don't understand.
I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it to you. I'm going to jump into the rabbit hole, and then I'm going to go burrow into another rabbit hole. But anyway, let's talk about microbiome testing, which I'm going to think is the cousin to Cologuard testing for colorectal cancer, but it's a completely different objective. So have at it, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you for that very poetic introduction.
I don't know how other ways I could put it.
Well, you're right. I mean, the microbiome testing is a lot like the Cologuard, where they need a poop sample, and that really entails essentially usually putting something, over your toilet seat or under your seat, and it catches your excrements, and then you pull something out of a tube, poke it in different areas of the
sample.
The sample. Thank you. The sample.
Hey, I'm trying here. I'm trying.
And you put it in there, and they usually send you this prepaid USPS envelope, and you put it in there and send it away, and it usually takes about 4 weeks to get the samples back. And this is one of the issues that I have with this, and I'm sorry I got to go off on this. I was talking to one of the vendors that I work with for the microbiome test. 4 weeks is very common for these microbiome tests to get analyzed and come back. Our microbiome can change in a month. So when I'm working with somebody, if they have these symptoms and I want to work with them, I want to know what their microbiome is. One of the challenges is that I kind of want to know what their microbiome looks like immediately. And you can certainly get for $150 more, you can get an expedited analysis, which will arrive in 1 to 2 weeks, but you pay a big premium for it. So these new shotgun sequencings, which we really, really want because you get down to a species level, so we can address that, are already anywhere from $200 to $350 for a test. You want to add another $150 to expedite it. It's difficult, and I had this conversation with one of the vendors. If you really want to lead in this arena, you need to give people timely results. Think about this if you're a doctor, took these labs and wouldn't get them back to you for a month, wouldn't you be a little frustrated with that? It makes it challenging because I think people want something really fast and quick.
Yeah, in the real world, you'd go for blood and urine at the laboratory and, you got them in a couple of hours, worst case, a couple of days.
Right, exactly. And I'm happy. I think people are willing to pay a little bit of a premium to get them within 1 to 2 weeks. My point to this vendor, of course, is that how am I supposed to do something? Because, it's like learning about the earthquake in Turkey, like a month later. Like it doesn't really help, help
you need
anything.
help sooner.
Yeah, you need help sooner than that.
Plus, if there's an advanced problem, 30 days is a big difference.
It's a big difference, exactly. By the time that I've started treating them with certain things, changed their diet, their habits, Their microbiome is completely different a month later. They're feeling better. They already, I mean, what good and what use is that first sample if I don't really need it anymore? They already feel different. We can, I guess, one way we could do it, I guess, is to compare the first and second samples. But it's useful. It's another $350 to get another sample. Not many people want to pay that.
Well, then it turns into a class issue. Being a real estate broker, you know, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, utility rates, food costs. At least 50% of the United States is living paycheck to paycheck. And I would think the percentage of the population that has a disposable income to spring for a microbiome test is going to be economically precluding the majority of people.
There are tests that are available for a lot cheaper, but they're the very much an older technology, and it doesn't give you. I think we talked about this again one of the last episodes. It doesn't give you the resolution that we really want to address certain maladies that we had talked about.
Right. So what's the happy medium? What's the solution? What's the ideal version? Where could we ultimately be going on this?
How much would you be willing to pay for, let's pretend for a second, how much would you be willing to pay for a microbiome test? And what kinds of expectations would you want out of it?
Well, if it's the difference between feeling good and not feeling good, if it's the difference between being energetic and tired, if it's the difference between not having to take medication and taking a considerable amount of medication, I'd be willing to pay $1,000 easy.
I think it would save you a lot of money when you think about what people might be spending on medication and doctors, and it's a small price to pay, I think, for that kind of information. Particularly if it's only like $350, I think is, that can be kind of pricey. I'm trying to talk to these vendors to get to bring down the price on it, because it seems to me that some of the people who really want it or need it the most aren't able to spend that premium on a microbiome test, when I think it's very useful information.
Yeah. So how likely do you think one of your vendors might do that, and might they be able to make the profits up in another area?
If I keep circulating this video, many people will do something about it. There seems to be they seem to be a bit receptive to it. Because I think if you can speak the language, if you want to be speak the language in that, I'm trying to get them to be the one that I'd like to work with, particularly, to be a marquee company in this space. You need to provide fast results at a reasonable price, for people who want this service. That's where you're going to be, at the forefront and leader in this sector. But it's a growing sector, because people are realizing that more and more people are wanting these microbiome tests and wanting the information that's in it, because of how it's related to just about all kinds of the diseases and aging and all kinds of things that are going on with us in a health capacity.
Well, I can say this. On the one hand, you can see where this is very much of a class issue. High income earners, athletes, entertainers, successful entrepreneurs can afford to pay the freight. And since their income and livelihoods are based on performance, physical and mental performance, it makes perfectly good sense for them to spring for the microbiome tests. But on a lower level, anybody that is generating a decent income and is interested in high performance, this seems like it would be an essential but probably neglected component of peak performance. I mean, people might think they're eating well, they might think that they're exercising properly, but if there's a disconnect in their microbiome, that could be seriously impeding their performance and ultimately their health. What do you think of that?
Well, absolutely. I think the information you get from a microbiome test is invaluable because the more that we're learning about specific species and how they're related to each other and how it impacts our health is growing by the minute. And I think at some point there is going to be a come to Jesus moment where it's going to start becoming more and more
Mainstream.
Exactly. Particularly but we live we're still stuck in this traditional medical model where, we get the same tests, we get the same things that we've been doing for forever. And medicine, as much as medicine has moved forward technologically, there's still a lot of aspects of medicine where we stayed behind. And that is particularly in the world of pharmaceutical drugs and things like that. We want the fast pill.
So the microbiome, is it any more recognized in Eastern medicine or holistic medicine than it might be in Western medicine?
It is. It's recognized more and more. And in fact, I just talked to somebody who is a practitioner in Chinese medicine, who's incorporating that into her practice more and more with her clients. So it's gone to mainstream in terms of alternative medical models, just not the Western medical model. And that's not to say that it won't ever do that. I think that it will. But there's the more people who start to accept that, the better off we'll be. But in general, there's a concern that we don't know enough. And medicine needs this validation, this complete validation. It reminds me of the government. The government's like 30 years behind on nutrition. So,
we'll go down the FDA rabbit hole next.
Right.
Yeah. So, especially if you're on Medicare, you're a senior citizen, chances are that you're going to have to delve into the microbiome world through Eastern medicine, holistic medicine. You're really not going to have any kind of a fast track towards it in Western medicine and, under most of the health providers under Medicare.
No, that's one of my crusades, I think, is to get this as a part of, to get insurance to be able to pay for some of this, particularly with the information that you can get from it. The more, and I don't even know if in medical schools they're teaching, how to read or how to look at specific species and what's impacting each other. There's only so much you can learn, but in medical school it's a lot about pharmaceutical drugs. That's the way the medicine's run now.
Yeah, well, also I would imagine, I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it would be in the interest of fast food and pharmaceuticals that this type of approach and treatment be suppressed.
Yeah. You're going to have just as many people wanting to keep it, as you said, suppressed, and as many people who want it.
Now, is that a sin of omission where, they're just fine if nobody's talking about it, or are there active steps taken to suppress it?
That's a good question. We should look into that. That'd be a good discussion, actually. It would not surprise me. I think there's been a lot of, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 13 years. And I can tell you unequivocally, what's important is the investors and the stakeholders.
Yeah, profits.
Absolutely.
Quarter to quarter.
And I've had a number of experiences in that arena that demonstrate that. In fact, one of the I went to a conference in Las Vegas, an obesity conference, because we were developing drugs for obesity and diabetes, and one of the little out conference talks was about the placebo effect. And the question is, because the placebo effect accounts for 30% of the effect of a drug. And the question is, how do we eliminate the placebo effect? Not just statistically, but like, how do we get rid of it in general? And I had this moment of clarity of like, you know, if there's a placebo effect of 30%, maybe that's a solution, maybe not necessarily the problem. And all of a sudden I had this clarity on my career of what am I doing? Like, mm-hmm. I'm a drug peddler. And it was difficult. It was a very illuminating moment to the realization of where I actually was and the direction it's headed.
Well, it is a troubling handshake between fast food and the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, it's a perpetuating cycle of, food as poison, and then you medicate yourself out of the symptoms. That's basically what you're trying to fight, correct?
Yeah. In fact, that's why Coke was developed that way. You know that Coke has caffeine and sodium in it. We know that, sodium makes you thirsty, caffeine makes you pee. So the whole point of Coke is really to keep you thirsty all day long and reaching for another Coke. Keep you dehydrated and thirsty all day long, so you reach for another one. That was really, one of the impetus is to develop this kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. I'm sure fast food is the same way. It's developed to keep you wanting that and making that a regular part of your diet.
It's like a video game effect.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, well, we're definitely trying to walk up the down staircase for sure with this one.
It is. It's. I won't get into this conspiracy theories, but it would be interesting to talk about that in maybe another episode because, there's a reason that maybe that's not really starting to become mainstream as fast as it really could be.
Yeah. Very good. Well, so we talked a little bit about testing. It sounds like there's a lot more to the testing, so we'll revisit that subject in the near future. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you guys on the next page. Talk to you soon.